My name is Toby, T-O-B-Y, and my age is 7.
My name is Daniel Sahiwan and I'm 17 years of age.
Our child's name is Piper and she's 7 years old.
My child's name is Tatum and she's 6 years old.
I've got twin boys. I've got Benjamin and I've got Harrison. They'll be 13 in January.
My name is Ben.
Autism is a disability that affects the way a person behaves and acts with the world around them. It is characterised by sensory sensitivity, a dependency on routine and lack of social skills.
Good morning, Toby. Today I'm going to show you
My main concern with having a student with ASD in my classroom is getting to know that student as an individual, to know what sort of things are calming for them, what sort of things they're good at, what sort of things they have difficulties with, what sort of things might cause them anxiety in class.
Ben's interests revolve really around being active, whereas Harrison's my sort of computer nerd, likes his computers and iPad. They're very different, even though genetically they're exactly the same, they're identical.
Autism spectrum disorder is often referred to as a spectrum or a continuum of impairment.
Sure can.
Children can be quite differently affected if you're comparing one child with autism with another. There are two key areas. One is difficulties with social interaction and social communication, and the other area is the presence of what we call restricted or repetitive behaviours. In the social area, there are 3 key symptoms that we look for when we're assessing a child for possible autism spectrum disorder. The first is difficulties with non-verbal behaviours when communicating. When we communicate with other people, we talk, but we actually do a lot more than that. We use our facial expression, we use eye contact, we use our hands to gesture, we even change tone of our voice to help get our meaning across. And for people with autism, none of those things are used well or come easily.
She may misunderstand some people's facial expressions, or in turn they may think that she's not being polite by not responding to greetings.
The other difficulty is around social responding and emotional responding to other people. So the sorts of things we might look for is the way a child responds when another person tries to engage them. So how a child responds when a person greets them. So do they need prompting to respond to other people? Or sometimes perhaps children are responsive but do so in quite an inappropriate way. So they might be even over-friendly or over-familiar and don't really know how to, judge the relationship and then their behaviour accordingly. We also look for being able to pick up on other people's feelings, so that's the emotional element. So are children able to recognise other people's feelings and respond accordingly? And are children trying to involve other people in their enjoyment and their experiences?
He will present as a normal kid. On his bad days though, he can actually retreat totally and not communicate at all. He won't acknowledge the person. So of course then they get angry, like, you need to say hello to me. So then they'll start getting angry with him, and then that will increase his anxiety and stress, which then makes it worse.
Socially, she can sometimes misinterpret some social cues, and that can also create some problems.
Daniel takes language literally. So we'd been out one night and we'd come home, and I stopped at some traffic lights just coming into town, and I had a drink of water out of a bottle I had in the car. I then pulled into a service station to get some petrol, and he leapt out of the car, went running inside, screaming at the top of his voice that his mother's a drink driver, she's out there drinking in the car. He recited the ad word for word with all the emotion in there that it was going to ruin his life and it's going to tear the family apart. And so I was breathalyzed, all because literal interpretation of language.
And the third key symptom in the social area is around relationships, particularly with other children their age.
My biggest concerns when Piper started school were that she make friends and she get along with other kids in the group.
Autism makes me very different to my peers in that for most people they're able to easily join groups and talk with other people, whereas I find that very difficult.
In the area of restricted and repetitive behaviours, we have 4 symptom groups. A child wouldn't necessarily have to show all 4 of them, but they would have to show at least 2. So in that area, we look for sensory differences. So Sensory differences relate to children either being oversensitive to sensory stimuli.
Sensory is a big thing for Daniel. Noises sound very, very loud. So things like going to a school disco is very difficult for Daniel because it's just too loud, but he wants to be there because that's what everybody else is doing.
On the flip side, some children are seeking out sensory stimulation that other children don't do. So for example, some children with autism will want to look at things in an unusual way, really closely and for long periods of time. So they might hold objects up in front of their eyes, they may lie on the floor and move objects back and forth in front of their eyes. Another area that we look for is children who exhibit what we call obsessive or unusual interests.
I don't like books that are not anime. I like books that are anime, but ones that are not anime, I don't like.
I have a lot of other interests to most people in my year. Most of the boys in my year are into sport and motor cars and all that, whereas I am really not into that. I'm quite the opposite. And as such, I don't feel that I fit in because I don't fit that sort of general mould. My main interests are coin collecting, bike riding, archery, and travel.
A third symptom in restricted and repetitive behaviours relates to children who are very resistant to change or very fixated or rigid in the way they go about doing things.
Routine is so important for Daniel, that everything in our life is so routine. The order we get up in the morning, what we eat for dinner. So one night I tried to serve lamb on a Thursday night and Daniel just refused to eat it, had a meltdown, and his reason was because we never have lamb on a Thursday night.
Tatum likes routines and she also likes to have things in order.
Ben might have to sort of do the same routine every day, and then one day it'll change and a new routine will be in. So he might have to go around the pole 3 times or before he gets in the car. So if somebody doesn't really know him, those sort of things might seem a little strange, but to him that's just about realigning and refocusing himself and being able to sort of get on with his day.
And the last area in terms of restricted and repetitive behaviours relates to what we call stereotyped, which means unusual, or repetitive, and this could be speech, it could be body actions, or it could be use of objects.
Things like their stimming is part of who Ben is, and if he needs to sing in an opera voice for a while, then that's his way of realigning, refocusing his body.
Autism is sometimes accompanied by other difficulties that can make the presentation look different. So for example, some children with autism are also contending with significant learning difficulties or intellectual disability. Some children with autism have other comorbid mental health problems. Anxiety is common in children with autism.
Piper's biggest challenge with school would have to be the separation anxiety at the start of the day. So most days we go through issues with transitions into the classroom to start with.